You know, after playing through this, I'm really glad I double-checked the SM64 Hack of 2023 award showcase, coming in 5th place in a manner that feels disrespectful but is in truth just the limits of what other category hacks had in their limited amounts of votings. Or something. I don't actually know why it was the way it was, but that's what I came to my conclusion and formed my reasoning. Nonetheless, the Magical Land 64 is a ROM hack made by Paprameru 46, but currently known as Papra M46 for short, or as me messing it up multiple times. I feel like it was necessary. The story is very SM64-like, as well as the worlds you will be going through in this, but with that added in flesh and flair that makes it a completely new experience from what's expected of from the vanilla game. Right from the get-go, straight out of the pipe, and somehow forgetting that there was a door behind me, taking that normal trek towards the door leading inside of the castle familiar to oh so many, just to get a complete 180 or at the very least a 90-degree treatment, as the castle is practically recognizable without being recognizable. And even Toadsworth makes an appearance here, unlike that Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door remaster trailer, but it's still good to see his return after being in the Bean Bean Kingdom for oh so long. Entering the same room that has a no star requirement just to see that even the signs were moved and the painting has been redone, and these pale in comparison to the rest of these new iterations. This time around, there's only one friendly Bob-omb, and orange at that too. There's a whole river at the forefront, making the bridge actually feel like it makes sense now, and man, the view to this place screams reimagined. Even the Koopa Troopas are now more of a competent threat, and don't just run away from you like a little bitch. You got Goombario here to tell us something we already know. Oh, okay, I see what you did there. There's new objects from past games. This game now sports a new color palette, adding more to that crayon Yoshi-like aesthetic while still keeping the structure of the original Bob-omb Battlefield familiar. Only thing that was off was how there was no threat to stop us from getting to the big bad, just for said big bad to mention how we bypassed his non-existent defenses, but as a means to further continue throwing a curveball to what you remember, or at least a mixture between the N64 and DS version. King Bob-omb now has a bit of a challenge, turning on a dime and even yeeting his mysterious hidden underlings, but just like the DS version, you can either use the Bob-ombs or you can take the riskier approach and do the ye old good way of just grabbing him and then throwing him. Rediscovering the level of mine and pretty much every other 90s kid's childhood in this new landscape was a joy to run through, even if a few elements would have been cool to keep in a few ways, but at least the remodeling makes it make sense now. And even going back to the castle grounds that used to be oh so familiar is way more connected now and feels more of a mount, as most castles in some sort of early medieval times would have, with water flowing and whatnot. No longer will you be triple jumping to the top for that extra 3 lives, but instead a further path along the way that leads towards the repositioned cannon that's open from the start. And like a dopamine to those that, like me, have the need to always check the castle roof just to find out that there was a star there the whole time is pretty well placed and reward fulfilling. Heading towards a back door and being greeted with that Mario's house music from Superstar Saga was a well-needed pace changer for the castle grounds' ambient night chirping sounds. Not that it's bad or anything, but running about with this cheery music and on the outskirts residing the Toad Town in this tiny residential area with a few toads and a toadette present, just vibing and idling about. After capturing the eye-capturing star and entering the soul pipe, which led to an underground cavern for the metal cap, which felt very Super Mario-like and appropriate for the surroundings. Returning back to the surface, but the curiosity of the well is also a rewarding one to be had, as upon entering we are engaged in Mortal Kombat from the likes of Mr. L, Bowser's #1 minion, and man, the Mario Story characters really getting that good props and respect here. The fight isn't too much to deal with, even if Mr. L did get a few cheap shots in here and there a few times. Once things have died down, Mr. L comes back to the beloved brother he's known to be and even becomes a playable character here. Who would have thought that L was actually real and behind the castle the whole time, and obviously him being an unlockable, we have to play as the man, the myth, the legend himself, Player 2. Something I really do appreciate though is being able to rematch Mr. L as the real L himself, just for the dialogue to actually change to that matter, which isn't the only time there is a change here, and even if it is a small detail of something, it feels like it brings some good value with it. But you want to know something I didn't appreciate? Like, dude, I could have sworn we left this cursed head inflation like a decade ago. Regardless, on to the rest of the Bowser shenanigans. Back to the area of Gold Peach and through the door behind just to see yet another classic character, Merlin, with his omnipotent crystal ball, but it's now a means of transport to a ghostly world where the ghastly Boo hoodlums are present. Right from the start, the mashup of level design really threw me off here. It had the similar layout and spawn point as the dusty, gusty, dry desert, and even the same little structure it has at the exact same spot, just missing the little sand sinking pit below. But the rest of the level is as expected for a ghostly manner. A seemingly abandoned castle with some ghost about, even having some more of that new custom enemy flair here, like the Kameks being spread about and they're spelling out of magical orbs to shoot at you, trees in a sorry state as they have been chopped off from many years ago, no longer in their towering naturing pizzazz. To me, it felt like there was a bit of uncanniness with the non-lack of color compared to the Big Boo's haunt, and even a few of the brown texturing between the bright blue grass feeling a bit mismatched. Aside from that minor thing, it's an empty space with a few props that fill up a few of that space, and even entering the big building was a bit bare as it's just a means of getting a star, but at least it had its pieces needed to be switched on to eventually get to that collectible. Even the main tower where we face off against the king of all Boos is pretty straightforward and to the point. The fight not having any chit chat to be had, maybe even think at a certain point that maybe that the reason why I was getting my ass handed to me was due to being the supposedly cowardly Mario brother. Not gonna lie, if that was the case, then that'd be an interesting detail knowing that the twins actually do play differently. But yeah, though I didn't really need to switch as Mario, something about losing as Luigi just to have Mario teach the Big Boo what's what felt ironically wholesome, even if unnecessary. But that bad business being handled and the mantle being passed back to the L-Man, off to the area of water with a complete change of Jolly Roger Bay, which is now more smaller, and the level all comes full circle, literally. The level's smaller, the boat itself is pint-sized, everything is just small. Like it's meant to be a diorama that's also meant to be new and original. The more oceany stuff are present, like coral reefs and seaweed with a wanky camera, since I guess Lakitu is just scared of the water now. But inside of the ship, I'm discarding a guy who isn't much too shy. But man, the claustrophobia is real here. But obviously it's a given with the small ship being sunken, and it could have been neat to have that bit of water to add in that submersive underwater feeling. Nonetheless, this level was pretty short to go through, but for what it was, it definitely had its originality while taking a few notes from the original concept. Now for Thwomp's Fortress, and unlike Whomp's Fortress, Thwomp's Fortress feels and looks like something you'd see from some of the early beta Whomp's Fortress from the Space World, Gigalink, Decomp, Word Soup, whatever the hell you want to call it. That is basically Googling common knowledge now at this point. For the most part, you're going to be going up this towering level multiple times and getting a new experience and pathway each time you go through it. But with the atmosphere and music present here, it amplifies that beta feel to it. And the addition of the dynamic rain on the outside that will stop raining whenever you enter the fortress itself is just a perfect chef's kiss to this level. But the rest of it honestly is pretty much a casual stroll, and the only thing left to mention now is the Thwomp King himself. And obviously he cannot be cheesed the same way you could with the Whomp King, but then again my last two ground pounds were comboed together, so maybe a quick 3 hits was possible, but still an easy little quarrel the two would have. For the last of the bunch of these reimagined courses is a winter wonderland up ice and snow. A whole area of white powder with the Soul Penguin about, recommending the fun carefree sliding across this little mini ice rink. Mr. Sandy Claus must have left his sled on autopilot as it spins in a continuous circle. It still remains as a simple level to play around in, and the only fault I can really give it is having actual fall damage instead of having Mario just get stuck inside of snow. Or maybe my headcanon is that the temperature is so cold that the ground is just ice solid, or something, I don't know. There is another boss to be had here, but he's also by the numbers. But at least it feels like another Super Mario 64 DS callback to the Icy King arena fight. But at this point, the Super Mario Bros. Have enough stars to go after the Koopa King himself. The galactical zero gravity kicks in, the floaty jumping and platforming is a joy to have in this level, matching the out of this world expectations of space and a few placements that would be a challenge if not for the floaty physics, making this a leisurely and easy segment to traverse through, but ultimately still feeling even more smaller given the fact you could just skip most of the platforming that you see all throughout this level. But now, at the grand scheme of it all, and looking more like his Mario Galaxy self, is Bowser as he towers over the bros and seemingly having blue eyes, which threw me off. I don't know if I'm the only one that noticed that, but you know, it doesn't really hurt. It really doesn't matter. But the fight consisting of dodging flames from the giant lizard himself and dodging the rocks falling from above, but to also kick the one that doesn't break upon collision. Overall, it's still an easy fight, but very cool in its execution. But I do wish there was a bit more that could have lengthened out the fight. Maybe have like more phases than just the one, making it feel more of a all-time galactical battle between good and evil. But once he's done, he just blows up. Like I kind of feel bad for him. I feel like the black hole would have been better. But the grand star finally achieved by the brothers. Toadsworth thanks us for our efforts, and all that's left is to enter a new room where both Peach and your brother resides in, getting the thanks that actually matters to both brothers as everything comes to a close, and with the world at peace, finally relaxation can be had along with some cake. The Magical Land 64 may have been another small ROM hack that changed a bit of the vanilla Super Mario 64 and morphing it to its own reimagining, but it was a fun time to be had, and although it has that strong start but kind of a weak finish when it comes down to its level design, the new stuff was nice to see though. And I still find it very unfortunate that this game didn't have a proper slot to be shown in the little award show of Hack of 2023, and even when I saw the design of some of the enemies and looking back at the devs' previous works just to see King Boo's Dream Invasion, which was a hack that I covered way back when, and that game was even smaller than this but was a cool concept that's currently being made into something more unique. Yes, what you are currently seeing now is still a Super Mario 64 game, and that's what I love about these hacks. And it's very unfortunate there couldn't have been an extra slot for this hack I'm covering, because this creator sure has a lot of promise from the other works they've done thus far. Outside of that, this was a great ROM hack. The little details and additions were also great. The coloring was bright and colorful, maybe a little too much for the blue area. The music was nice to listen to, adding that new feel, along with the jump animations looking like the classic NES sprites in 3D. Mario's dives and slide kicks has more oomph to it, and even the Stargate animation looked way more cheery compared to what we're normally used to. The side characters are true to who they are, as you know, Toad's gotta be Toads, Merlin is oh so very wise. Everything about this hack was a fresh hour to play through, and I can definitely recommend checking it out for yourself if you get a chance, and to also check out Papra M46 to stay tuned to that new interesting Luigi's Mansion 64 hack. Just make sure it's his hack that you are playing and not the many other loads of Mansion inspired hacks and retextured hacks, or who knows, maybe play them all. The choice is yours. Now, this concludes the end to the Super Mario 64's Hack of 2023 series coverage showcasing whatever have you. Hope the vids were enough to pique your interest for what these ROM hackers can cook up. It's amazing that they've been able to push out beyond the limits of what this one game was able to fully originally do. But yeah, do the YouTuber viewer whatever stuff, and above all, thanks for watching.